don't have enough resources or time to do the fourth. So it's matching resources to opportunities. And getting that right is a key challenge for teams, and requires some of this behavior that we've seen here. So one of the ways of testing that will be, well, is the priority one that's leading towards our common purpose or not? Do we have the roles we need and all these kinds of things here? And also, are we ready to subordinate individual aspirations? So it might be the team says, let's take one of those priorities, we think it's important, and so all the work that you have been doing for the last 3 months on that project, thank you very much, we don't need it anymore, because we have a new priority for the team. That takes some quite advanced ability as an individual to accept that. And you only accept that if you believe and trust the other people in the team. And you say, fine, we're in this for the team objective. We're not in this for the individual objective. Does that answer the question? Yeah. So this is the little "Are we a team?" test. That this is not proprietary to me. If you read many of the management theory books, you'll find versions of this. But essentially, I would think you would find almost all of these components in a number of different approaches to leadership and teams. However, the story unfortunately is not at an end. Even if you pass that test, you may still not have a high-performance team, because there are some other challenges. And really, it follows on from what I was saying on that final rule, or that final challenge. It's this challenge from moving from I to we in your own personal self-awareness. The most difficult thing really to do. And you need to just frame it in the context of even our societies and our education systems, where everyone grows up with the idea that it's all about individual performance. In school, it's about individual performance, the grades you get. In university, where you are now, it's about individual performance, which will lead to the interviews for companies that you hope you'll get the jobs for, where you are already competing with each other and with other people outside here. Then within the company is individual competition and performance to try and rise through the company and build your career. So it's very, very difficult for people, particularly at a senior position, where they have arrived because of individual, hopefully performance, sometimes politics and other components that they've used, to think in terms of we. Tarun mentioned at the beginning, a large part of the work I do with teams is to do with personality, and to look at the mix of personalities within a team, and to see how that impacts the way they work as a team and how that impacts their performance. And I've seen in the clients I've worked with some extraordinary things, I've seen some extraordinary mixes of people which have explained the way they work as a team. To give you one example, actually no, I'll give you the example later. But I've also seen examples of explaining this to teams, and for them it has been a revolution in understanding the frustrations they have felt with individuals they have been working with. So I'm going to take you through 4 slides. Each of them is a quiz. They're taken from they're not taken, but they are based on a personality psychometric, and there are many psychometrics which are tests of personality around the world. This is a psychometric I use, which is probably the most well-known, the most widely used, also used in Asia, certainly in India quite widely. Just to give you a flavor, like, normally I would take a whole day to take people through this, and they would have done the test first, and then I'll explain to them, and then I'll tell them, or give them their report, and they would see the report on their personality. We can't do that today. So I just want to give you a flavor of what happens there. So, imagine you're at a party. Okay? This is just like you as an individual. And you don't know anyone there. Okay, you got that in your minds? You got that situation imagined? Are you the kind of person who would walk over to a group and find the earliest opportunity to join the conversation? Or are you a person who would organize a drink for yourself, go to the window and admire the view? Or are you a person who would survey the groups, find someone who's on their own, and go and talk to them? So think about it for a moment, and then I'm going to ask who is in A, who is in B, and who is in C. And there is no, it's not a test, there's no trick. It's just simply a question how you spontaneously think you would react to that situation. Okay, so who is in A? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 roughly. 6 out of, how many people are there here? About 40? 40, okay. So roughly a seventh. How many are in B? About the same, okay. And in C? The remainder, I hope, because there's no other option. Okay, so the bulk of you are in here, right? Which is sort of a compromised position. It's fine. Now this is there's nothing wrong with that. This is a psychometric test, which with more than one part of it, which looks, as you can see at the top, on this distinction between extroversion and introversion, which you can understand as extrovert or introvert. Now the people who answered A would probably be extroverts, if you answered it correctly. Now this is not, this is not a formal test and so on, so it's a bit of an easy quiz, but you would probably be extroverts. If you answered B, you're probably introverts. If you answered C, you either are a mix, or the bad news is you don't know whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, which is also a possibility. Now, why do you think that could be important in a team environment? Any ideas? Why is that relevant to team?
Communication.
Decision making, yes. Communication, absolutely. Anyone else?
Coordination.
Coordination, well, what does that mean? Sorry.
When two persons are working without on the same goal, without coordination, they can't achieve the goal. If the person is extrovert, he will go to the other person and help him and discuss things. But the person is introvert, he tends to keep it to himself.
Absolutely right, yeah. So what tends to happen is extroverts, and I'm being a little superficial here, speak first, think later. Introverts think first and speak later. Now if you're in a team, you're having a discussion, you want to make a decision, you're always under time pressure in a business. The people who speak first and think later will be tending to take more of the time of the meeting, they'll be dominating the discussion. And if you're not careful in a team, and I've seen it, the introverts, they start saying something, but an extrovert will just come in and cut them off. They try once more, another introvert cuts them off, and then they say, you know what, no one's interested, so I'll stop talking. The danger is that the introverts may have some very good ideas. And so you lose the value of great input to making the best decision from potentially the introverts in the team. So that's just one example. Here's a second test. Your boss asks you to prepare a strategy paper for presentation to the CEO. Big presentation, important opportunity for you. You're not the CEO, you're somewhere down the organization, so here, this is an opportunity. You don't want to get this wrong. Do you think A, it's most important to collect relevant data with which you can support any recommendations? B, I think it's most important to come up with a completely new way of looking at the company's strategy? Or C, I think it's most important to do both? Think for a minute and then make your choice. Who's A? 1A. 2 A's. Okay. Who's B? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And who's C? Mostly are C. Okay. The people are hedging their bets here. Normally what I do is I would put people in different parts of the room so you can really see the differences. But okay, so None of those answers are wrong. Although C does carry a little bit of, I don't quite know what kind of person I am, I have to say. What is the distinction here? The kind of personality profile we're talking about is between people who on the, as you see, sensing side, which is the option A, people who, before they can even think about new ideas, need the information, need the data. They can't, their heads do not work in such a way that they say, I can imagine in 10 years this business school will have 4,000 students, will have 3 campuses across the country, and will have 4 offices around the world. Because before they even think like that, they say, don't waste my time with fancy pictures and vision and so on. Give me the hard data. What are your results so far? What's the growth trajectory in the industry? What's the projection for demographics? They use data to come up with ideas. These people in B say data, yeah, we'll get to the data. Let's think of the vision first. Then we'll use the data to check the vision. And C, in this case, you haven't made up your mind. Now, think about it in terms of teams. You're in a team of people. What do you think happens when you have that mix? Any ideas? Yeah?
If you have a mix in the team, I feel that you can get you can have disagreements over some people feeling that others' ideas are too radical, maybe, or they're too visionary. Like they're great visions, they're great theories, but they're not very practical or put in a real life setting. And then you have others that feel that some are too conventional, are basing their ideas too much off of what the company has done for ages and ages.
So that's broadly right. If you have a mix of people, these two, A and B, you probably have quite a nice mix. And as long as you don't have one of these groups also being completely introverted, so they never say anything, then you probably have some real value in that team because you'll have the right balance. The risk is when you don't have that interaction working. So then either these people are silent or the other people are silent. And I've seen a number of teams where there's a complete imbalance, and you'll have an introverted, intuitive person, so B in this case. Lots of good visions, but their vision never comes out. So the team never benefits from that vision. The team is not visionary. Doesn't think forward, gets locked into data, collects data and more data and more data, goes deeper into analyzing, drilling down. Excel spreadsheets are where they love to be. And that can be a real performance disadvantage. And Steve Jobs, I don't think came up with his ideas in Excel. Well, he wouldn't have done that anyway, right? But on a spreadsheet. The third one is very much about people. Imagine this scenario. Your team's facing a critical decision. You have told all members days ago they must be present to discuss and agree next steps. 10 minutes before the meeting is due to start, one of the team comes to you and says he needs to miss the meeting because of family reunion. 10 minutes before the meeting, and it's important. Do you do that? Or that? Or that? Who chooses A? No one chooses A. That's interesting. Okay. Oh, you choose A. Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't see you. Sorry. No one else? One more A. Two more A's. Okay, a few A's. How many B's? A lot more B's. And how about C? Okay. Now that's interesting. There's almost potentially a cultural element here. Because by and large, in most teams I work with, they choose A. They say, look, this was really clear. You had days to tell me about the family reunion. You didn't tell me. How can you tell me 10 minutes before my meeting? No, that just doesn't work in the company environment. But anyone who chose B, would you like to explain, anyone, I don't mind who, why you thought B was most important, or the right way? Now that's very good, because that's exactly right. And what this, sorry, yeah, please.
Behind not coming for the meeting, reason behind that the person's situation, family situation is very bad for that. And it will be maybe physically he will be present in the meeting, but mentally he will be absent. So
Yep.
we should discuss with that as well.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, those are two perfect explanations of why you might choose B. And what it shows is also those are explanations of people who think more on the feeling side of this personality spectrum than on the rational, logical thinking side. The rational, logical behavior in this situation is to say, I told you 3 days ago, you had 3 days to tell me about your family reunion, you didn't tell me, you're coming to the meeting. All very logical. The feeling side of the equation is to say, I know I told you 3 days ago, but if it's so important that you can only tell me now, I give you the benefit of the doubt, I trust you, it must be very important, you can go. Now put this into the team context, and at a senior level of an organization where there's a lot of pressure on performance, where there's a lot of pressure on behavior, a lot of pressure on discipline, this becomes a very, very real challenge. And people in this situation can feel completely misunderstood. So if you are the person who makes this suggestion to your boss, you could be expecting your boss to understand because you have worked really well with your boss for 5 years. Always achieved the targets, always done everything that was expected. You're asking for one case of one exception. And if your boss reacts that way, in A, then you might say, well, okay, that's it. Worked for 5 years, did everything he wanted. If that's his response, I'm out of here. So you need to, that is a huge dynamic in organizations. Very, very, a great source of misunderstanding, of breakdown of trust, and can have a huge impact on team effectiveness and performance. And the final one here is this. You're traveling with your partner or spouse for your first visit to New York. Do you look up hotels, museums, galleries, and good restaurants and plan your trip before you go? Do you prepare nothing in advance and wait to see what the weather is like and then decide what you're going to do? Or do you do no preparation and worry about it? Who's on A? Okay. Who's on B? And who's on C? Ah. Full marks for honesty. Okay, the difference here, this is a critical difference in organizations and corporates, is between people on the J side, it's called judging, don't worry about the word, who like to be structured, systematic, methodical, well organized in advance. They make plans. If they have to achieve something, they'll make a plan 3 weeks in advance, 3 months in advance if necessary. They like playing with that plan. They're the kind of person who makes to-do lists. I've got 200 things to do. I'll only remember them if I have the list and if I tick them off every day so I know where I am. Some of you are nodding. I guess you might be those kinds of people. Nothing wrong with that. The other side of the spectrum, the P, are the people who make no lists. They say making lists is a waste of time. How can I make a list 3 weeks in advance when I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week? That may make the list completely irrelevant. It's a waste of time. I want to be more open, spontaneous. I'm still going to achieve the result. I'm not going to miss the deadline. But I don't need to waste my time with planning, which could be out of date if something changes. Both of those positions are right. There's nothing wrong with either position. But the challenge is when you're working in a team and you're under pressure and the head of the team says, you guys have to achieve this target by next January. If if you're on the J side, you say, okay, let's make a plan. We've got to make a plan. If you're on the P side, you say, we do not need a plan. And you can see already there's a lot of conflict potential. And that happens all the time. Very, very common. So that's just, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that because I think it's a very interesting area, and it's an area that is often forgotten, particularly when you are in a corporate environment which you're going to be going into or have been in already. The personality side of people tends to be forgotten in the pressure of performance. If you are leading a team and you manage to incorporate some of this thinking into the way you lead people, you will have an enormous impact on the motivation, the engagement of those people, and you will get more performance. Any questions on any of that?
So,
Yeah.
so making these decisions are sometimes depend on the need of the hour. Like traveling to New York is not that much important, but achieving the goal is most important. That's how you plan, and the decisions makes the change.
Did you vote A or B?
I got it.
A, yeah. That's what an A would say. So the interesting thing about personality is it affects your private life and your public life. Now, many people feel that, okay, that's all very nice, but when I go home, I'm a different person. In fact, you're not. I tell you about myself, I'm J, very much J. Tarun probably remembers that. Very much J. My wife is completely P. And so the kind of occasional disagreements we have would be, for example, as Tarun mentioned, I think I can't remember if you mentioned or not, but anyway, I'm a passionate tennis player. I like to play tennis a lot. My wife comes to me one day and says, I'd like to go out to dinner with you this evening. Special surprise. And I say, that's great, but I have my Thursday tennis game every Thursday. They're like, okay, sure, but you play every Thursday. This is me. You can go out to dinner with me. I said, yeah, that's fantastic. I'd love to, but couldn't we do Friday or Wednesday? And she says, no. I said, well, how can you know I play every Thursday? How can you suggest it today and put me in this difficult position? Now that can become a real argument. I'm not making it up. It's a real disagreement in which the two people look at the same thing, really, which is having dinner, in two very different ways because of their different personalities. And that happens in corporate life as well. When you're making decisions and having discussions in meetings, you come from the type of personality you are in the way you think. It affects the way you think. It doesn't block you. You can think differently. But when you're under pressure, according to personality type theory, you operate more like your personality. The more pressure you have, the more likely you are to respond or react in the way your personality is. And so that becomes a real conflict potential within teams and affects decisions and how projects are planned and how execution is planned and how organizations perform. Answer the question? Okay. So I'm going to just, if I have just 5 minutes more, is that fine? Yeah. So there's a little bit of, just a few minutes we should spend on the concept of high-performing teams. You'll hear about that a lot in management theory. Don't spend too much time on all the detail here. But when I transform teams, and I'm involved in transforming teams into becoming better teams and performing teams, what I always have to say is, if you are here and you're not performing very well, you're performing at the level you're at today, and I'm saying you could perform up here if you transform your team, you're going to go through a curve. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. Because the transformation, whatever time it takes, requires changing the way people behave, changing the way people see each other, changing the way that people interact with each other, spending some time defining those 7 steps I had, common purposes, the right roles, the right people. There's a lot of things you have to do. Transformation of an organization and a team sometimes involves a lot of change in people. People have to leave, other people have to come, so there's always a transformation period. And in that period, there can be a performance drop. But up on the other side, performance will significantly improve. And this is, I think, my final slide, and the only reason I put it up here, please only look at that. This is a model that I have developed, or we have developed in our company with the business school in Hong Kong. It's a performance model, so it's proprietary to us. And we use it in all our work, diagnostic work, and in our consulting work. And the only part I really want you to look at is here. And we talked a bit about this at lunch. Performance in teams and in organizations is often understood really just as this, getting results on the goals you set. So our profit grew by 20%. Our balance sheet doubled. We have increased our market share. All those numbers are important. There's no doubt about that. But to have a team that performs and produces sustainable performance, those numbers are not sufficient. And I've worked with teams that are producing fantastic numbers and are extremely unhappy and extremely frustrated and thinking of leaving and complaining and saying their leaders are not doing the right thing. So having the right results that the market feels is great is not enough to generate performance in the way we define it. What you also need to have is a second component, which is results on team capability, which means that you as a team can say to yourselves honestly, the way we produced those results last year was great, but this year it took us only half the resources and half the time, because we fine-tuned some things, we changed some things in the way we work together, and now we're performing better as a team than before. And that gives you a great sense of confidence and a great sense of achievement as a team, and you feel we're actually becoming better. There's meaning to what we're doing. We're finding ways of being better than our competitors, and this is very related to competition. It makes you feel powerful with respect to competition. And the third component is on personal learning. And I think everyone in the corporate world has to be very honest. People join organizations, but they also leave. They also do have quite legitimately interest in developing their careers. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, for organizations is to recognize that people need to feel, individuals need to feel that they are, while they are working for your organization, they are also learning something for themselves. So that at the end of a year, and you'll find in many employee satisfaction surveys run by companies today, there will be questions about, do you feel you have learned something this year? Have you developed your personal knowledge or competency? If you feel you are learning something in an organization, and you feel that is building a base for your future career, either in this organization or another one, you tend to be more satisfied and engaged. And you tend to feel that is good. And that means you tend to stay with the organization. So you become sustainable also for the organization. So that's really the personal learning. So according to our model of performance, the numbers are not enough. The team needs to feel they are also making progress and genuinely making progress, and the individuals need to feel they are making individual progress. I think, yes, that's all I have to say. I'm very happy to answer any other questions there are. Yeah. I don't remember the slide, but okay, just the question is, oh, that one, yeah, okay. So really, this is a difficult slide. So let me say that it's not easy to get anyone to get their head around the concept of what this consists of. But if you imagine, and the comparison is maybe best between, and I see many companies doing this. They say we have a team meeting. And a team meeting means to them the different people come together, head of HR, head of sales, head of global development, whatever it is. And their team meeting is to say, okay, let's go around the room, tell me what's happening. So what's happening in HR? This. What's happening in your part? Okay, fine. Yeah, what's happening here? Okay, fine. And that's their meeting. And in fact, I'm working with one organization which used to have no team meetings, and now they have that kind of meeting, which is really what I would call an update, status update. And they think it's fantastic. I say this is a really good meeting. Now they're coming from a situation where they had no updates at all, so I can understand that. But all that's really happening there is you have individual people telling each other what they are doing. But there is no attempt to cooperate, to work together, to benefit from each other's suggestions, from each other's knowledge and background, to benefit from some of the different personality types. So if you're facing a difficult HR challenge here with people and you're a logical, rational type, it might be good to hear from someone who is more a feeling type, to hear their perspective. So none of that value of interaction is happening. And because none of that value is happening, there is no possibility of producing any added value. Once you have that interaction where a team is functioning, then that potential exists. And that potential is sometimes difficult to quantify in terms of pure numbers, but it is definitely there because you become a better organization. And in terms of the performance metrics or the definition of performance I used at the end, if you're looking beyond the metrics, then some of the added value will appear here in terms of employee engagement satisfaction, in terms of feeling I'm learning something this year, so I'm going to stay for another year. Those kinds of components. But also you can get better quality decisions. So decisions that this person has to make, if informed by the input of all of these people who together have agreed we're going to work together as a team to achieve one objective, are likely to be better quality decisions than if they're taken on their own and if all you do is just meet for an update. Does that answer the question?
Actually, there's a little synergy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes when you're working, there's some situations where you put on some special time.
Mm-hmm. Often.
Maybe that's a way to make a team. If you're considered a person like a picture needs.
Mm-hmm.
So like how productive is that activity when you say if your organization goes up to the future? If your boss is making you work day in and out, evening, nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're working good as a team, but the employees get demotivated by the way they're working. So like they leave the organization
Yeah.
in the span of 1 or 1.5 years.
So, I mean, there's a lot, in this whole area of teams, there's a very big piece that I haven't really talked about, which is what is the leadership that a boss should show towards a team if they want this kind of team to operate. And in my view, and certainly the kind of leadership I used when I was in my corporate career, I don't know whether Tarun will confirm this, but certainly later on in my career, was to worry much more about, does the team understand where we are going? Do they all understand the objective and the common purpose? Do we have the right people in the team? Do we have the right roles defined? Do we have the right support from the rest of the organization? Those kinds of things. Now you notice none of those things are to do with the actual objective. And I think the true leader will leave the actual execution to the team because the leader has made sure he has a good or she has a good team. Will of course monitor performance and check and make sure it's all on track, but will not try and get involved in the detail. And many leaders find that difficult because their image of the CEO or the leader is the person who knows everything, who makes all the decisions, and who is really sitting there. So to make that transition for a leader, very difficult. I was once a leader in Tori mentioned in Scandinavia, so I was responsible for Finland to the Baltics, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and so on. And I don't know how many of you know, but Scandinavia is a very egalitarian society. So they don't have a lot of time for hierarchy. And I went there and had an office with the CEO and so on. And after a while, I thought, actually, I don't need this office. And we had to save some space, we had to cut some costs. So I'm just going to sit with the team. And so I just had a desk next to all the others. I was the CEO, so everyone knew that. But that was the situation. But for many people, that's difficult. If you're a leader, to be able to take that step, leave your office, sit amongst the other people, not look at the status as your definition of leadership. That's quite challenging. Yeah?
When you talk about speaking about team members who are not happy with best performance, right? Now about corporate governance issues, or they are not adequately compensated.
Those, of course, are issues. So you need to, you cannot expect teams to perform if they are compensated under market. That doesn't make sense. There need to be incentive structures. There need to be appropriate rewards for what you're doing. All of the things are important. Absolutely. But assuming all of that is in place, you can still have frustration and happiness for performance.
Example,
Yeah.
another item would be that the team member is very valuable as a learning person. So it depends on the team member also. So as a team leader, if you find, you know his qualities. You find he's a extremely valuable team member. And you want to drop off. That's something very wise to do.
So that's exactly the challenge. That is exactly the challenge. So what you do as a leader when you're